Know your place. Your family eats because of me. My boss yelled, denying my promotion, so I signed a better offer, quit, and watched HR escort her out. Hey, Reddit. I'm Ronnie, 41 male, and I didn't plan a career in data centers. I just kept saying yes to the ugly hours, and somehow that turned into a job title. 15 years ago, I was a night shift NOC tech at a regional ISP in Phoenix, staring at blinking dashboards and hoping nothing lit up red. Then a cooling unit died in the primary cage. Everyone else was blowing up the on-call manager, who'd conveniently missed his phone. So I handled it, kept the racks from overheating, and got everything stable before sunrise. The client never even knew. The next morning, my manager pulled me aside and hit me with the line that stuck: "Uptime isn't about being a hero. It's about making sure nobody ever needs one." That became my whole mindset. Stability, redundancy, change control, the boring stuff that keeps the lights on so everyone else can act like the infrastructure just magically works. I'm divorced, raising my 12-year-old son Jensen, mostly on my own. His mom moved to Seattle 3 years ago for a job that was supposedly temporary. It wasn't. So it's me and him in a 2-bedroom apartment in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I've spent the last 6 years as operations lead at Sentinel Ridge Hosting. We run managed infrastructure for banks, healthcare platforms, e-commerce companies, the kind of businesses where 5 minutes of downtime means 7 figures in losses and a very uncomfortable phone call with lawyers. Every Sunday night, Jensen and I eat Chinese takeout and watch old sci-fi movies. It's our thing. Those Sunday nights are the only hours of the week where my phone stays in the other room. That context matters, because when my boss told me my family eats because of her, she wasn't just insulting me. She was telling me she owned those Sunday nights too. The promotion conversation lasted 10 minutes. I checked my watch when I walked in, and again when I walked out, wondering how a decade of my professional life could be dismissed in less time than it takes to microwave a frozen burrito. Sentinel Ridge had been dangling the infrastructure director title for 2 years. Every quarterly review, same script. "You're doing great work, Ronnie. Leadership is watching. Keep it up and we'll get you there." The corporate equivalent of, "We have food at home." I'd kept it up anyway. Maintained the entire Eastern region's uptime north of 99.99% for 18 consecutive months. Built the incident response playbook that 3 other regions adopted. Personally managed the relationship with Meridian Financial, our largest client, through 2 major platform migrations without a single SLA breach. The numbers told a story anyone could read. Incident resolution time down by roughly a third. Client retention at 97%. 0 regulatory findings in 3 consecutive audits. I had the metrics printed out, tabbed and highlighted, sitting in a folder on my lap like evidence for a trial I naively thought I was going to win. But Gwen, my direct manager and VP of operations, sat across from me with that particular smile. The one that meant bad news was incoming, but she wanted you to thank her for the gentle delivery. Corporate hostage negotiator energy. She explained that the timing wasn't right, that the board wanted someone with more cross-functional visibility for this role. Someone who could represent operations at the executive level. Translation: someone who plays golf with the right people and knows which fork to use at client dinners. Someone who looks like leadership rather than does leadership. I pointed out that I interfaced with clients directly every week, that I'd presented incident postmortems to the C-suite 4 times this year, that Meridian's CTO had my personal cell phone and used it. She nodded and explained that leadership presence wasn't just about content, it was about how you show up, the optics, the executive gravitas. She actually used the word gravitas without irony. Optics. Gwen's favorite word. She'd built her entire career on optics, showing up to client meetings in blazers while I was elbow deep in server racks, taking credit for incident resolutions. She couldn't explain if you spotted her the first 3 letters, schmoozing with executives at networking events, while her actual team handled the overnight pages. I'd watched her present my post-incident analysis to the board last quarter, without mentioning my name once. "My team identified the root cause," she'd said, standing in front of slides I'd built, explaining a failure mode I'd diagnosed while she was at a leadership retreat in Asheville, doing whatever those things involve. She suggested I keep doing what I was doing. Let her work on opening doors. 6 months, maybe 9. We'd get there. The hamster wheel extended another rotation. Keep running, keep producing, keep making her look good, and maybe someday you'll get a pellet. I stood up to leave. The conversation was over, and we both knew it. She stopped me at the door, asked me to close it for a second. The polished corporate mask slipped slightly. What I saw underneath was something colder. The look of someone who viewed the people around them not as colleagues, but as inventory to be managed. Assets with unfortunate opinions. She said she wanted to make sure we understood each other, that she knew recruiters had been reaching out, that she knew I thought I had options. Then she reminded me I was a single father who needed stability, health insurance, predictable hours, that a kid in middle school isn't exactly portable, that the job market isn't kind to people who job hop at our age, like we were in the same boat. Like she hadn't just told me I wasn't ready for the promotion she'd gotten 3 years ago. Then the line that changed everything. Your family eats because of me, because I've protected your position here, because I've kept you out of the layoff conversations. A little gratitude and patience would go a long way. I didn't respond, didn't give her the satisfaction. Just nodded once, opened the door, and walked back to my desk. But something shifted in that moment. A wire that had been holding tension for years snapped clean. She'd said the quiet part out loud. She didn't see me as a colleague or even an employee. She saw me as a resource she controlled, a man she could threaten with his own son's well-being and expect gratitude in return. That night, after Jensen went to bed, I updated my resume for the first time in 3 years. Gwen Holloway hadn't always been this way. Or maybe she had, and I'd just been too busy keeping the lights on to notice the ceiling she was constructing above my head. She'd arrived at Sentinel Ridge 4 years ago, recruited from a larger competitor with a resume full of buzzwords. Transformational leader, strategic visionary, passionate about building high-performance teams. The kind of phrases that mean nothing but sound impressive to people who confuse confidence for competence. Her profile picture was professionally lit with perfect hair and a power blazer. Mine was cropped from a family photo at the zoo where Jensen was making bunny ears behind my head. Within 6 months, she'd reorganized the operation structure to put herself at the center of every client communication. Within a year, she'd implemented a visibility protocol requiring all significant updates to route through her before reaching leadership. In practice, nothing I did would reach anyone who mattered unless Gwen forwarded it. And when she forwarded it, my name got scrubbed. Credit went in, attribution came out. Magic. The Meridian financial relationship was the clearest example. I'd inherited that account when their previous vendor had a catastrophic failure, the kind everyone in ops circles heard about for years afterward, the kind that gets whispered as a cautionary tale at conferences and used as a case study in what not to do presentation. Their CTO had been burned badly enough to trust no one. I spent 18 months rebuilding that trust, one incident-free month at a time. Weekly check-ins, transparent reporting, actually answering my phone when she called at weird hours, which apparently was revolutionary in an industry where "we'll get back to you" usually means "we'll get back to you whenever we feel like it." By year 2, the client's CTO called me directly with concerns, bypassed the support line entirely because she knew I'd give her a straight answer instead of corporate spin. She trusted my judgment. She'd told me explicitly that Sentinel Ridge kept their business because of me. Not the company, not the brand. Me. Gwen's response to this? She inserted herself into every Meridian communication, CC'd herself on every email, and started scheduling executive alignment calls that were really just opportunities to take credit for stability I'd built. During the last contract renewal, she presented the relationship as her achievement. I wasn't even invited to the meeting. Andre, our senior systems engineer and the closest thing I had to a friend at Sentinel Ridge, put it perfectly one afternoon. She's not managing operations. She's managing the story of operations. And in her story, she's always the hero saving everyone from disasters that conveniently happened off screen. Andre had been around longer than anyone, a quiet guy in his 50s who'd seen 3 management regimes come and go. He understood the systems better than anyone alive, could diagnose a network issue by the sound the switches made, and understood the politics well enough to keep his head down. He'd started making observations lately, noting how every incident report got edited before going upstairs, how my 17-page root cause analysis became 3 pages after Gwen's review. Funny how problems keep getting smaller the higher up they travel, he said once. Like reverse gravity, except for accountability. Every one of those trimmed sections covered decisions Gwen had made or approved. The firmware update she'd pushed without proper testing because a client complained. The overnight monitoring staff she'd reduced from 3 to 1 because automation could handle it. The cooling maintenance she'd deferred to make quarterly numbers prettier. Every decision created risk. Every time I documented that risk, the documentation disappeared into her editorial process and emerged sanitized, blame-free, and ready for executive consumption. I wasn't just being blocked from promotion. I was being used as a shield. All the risk lived with me. All the credit lived with her. And if anything ever went wrong, I knew exactly whose name would appear on the incident report while hers stayed absent. The Meridian contract renewal was coming up in 2 months, along with a major platform migration requiring perfect execution. Gwen was already positioning herself to lead it, meaning she'd be in the meetings while I did the actual work. Again, I started taking recruiter calls seriously. The offer from Redstone Infrastructure came through on a Tuesday afternoon. Director of Incident Operations. 30% salary increase. Full remote flexibility with quarterly travel to their Denver headquarters. And most importantly, a clause I'd negotiated myself limiting mandatory on-call to 1 weekend per month, with comp time guaranteed for anything beyond that. I'd been interviewing quietly for 2 months, 3 final rounds with different companies, taking PTO for appointments that were actually video calls from my car in various parking lots around Charlotte. The automotive interview circuit. Redstone felt right. A company with actual engineering culture, not just slide decks about engineering culture. Their CTO had been an ops person before leadership, which meant he understood uptime wasn't magic. It was discipline, investment, and treating the people who did the work like professionals instead of resources. Before accepting, I negotiated one more thing. A start date 3 weeks out instead of 2, giving me time to wrap up responsibly and take Jensen camping before the transition. They agreed without pushback. I signed the offer Wednesday evening after Jensen went to bed. Cleared the background check by Friday. Monday morning, written confirmation arrived. All contingencies satisfied. The job was mine. The exit door was open. Monday afternoon, I requested a meeting with Gwen. She looked surprised when I walked in and closed the door. Probably expected another conversation about migration timelines or resource allocation or some other fire that needed my attention. Instead, I placed a single sheet of paper on her desk. This is my 2-week notice. My last day will be the 28th. 3 full seconds of silence. I watched her process it. Confusion. A flicker of what might have been panic. Recalculation. Then the familiar mask sliding back into place. She tried the concerned mentor angle first. Said she knew the promotion news was disappointing, but these things take time. Politics, patience, building relationships. Running away wasn't the answer. Translation. Stay on the hamster wheel. The pellet is coming eventually. I told her I wasn't running. I was making a career decision. She pivoted to guilt. Reminded me I had a son. That stability matters. Asked what happens if this new opportunity doesn't work out. Said the job market isn't exactly friendly to people at our stage of career. Our stage. Like we were peers. Like she hadn't spent 4 years making sure I stayed exactly where I was. Same play as before. Different phrasing. I told her my decision was final. Her expression shifted. She pointed out the Meridian migration was in 6 weeks. That I was the only one who knew their environment at this level. Their systems, their quirks, their people. That leaving now put the entire relationship at risk. The company at risk. I explained the migration plan was documented. The runbooks were complete. Any competent engineer could execute them. She demanded I push my start date. Give 8 weeks instead of 2. Let them hire and train my replacement properly. Then, insisted I be available for questions after leaving. Consultant arrangement. Emergency contact. Whatever it takes. No. The word hung there. I don't think she'd heard it from me in 6 years. I'd always been the yes guy. Yes to the extra project. Yes to the weekend coverage. Yes to the scope creep and unpaid overtime and impossible deadlines. That guy was done. I explained my notice period was 2 weeks, as specified in my employment agreement. I'd complete all standard handover procedures and documentation during that time. After the 28th, I wouldn't be available for Sentinel Ridge business in any capacity. Not consultant calls, not emergency contacts, not quick questions that turn into 4-hour firefights. Nothing. Not negotiable. She smiled coldly. I hope you know what you're doing, Ronnie. Decisions have consequences. The industry is smaller than you think. Yes, they do. For 6 years, I'd been the guy who fixed things before anyone knew they were broken. Early morning alerts resolved before clients woke up. Weekend pages handled without logging overtime because the team needed me. Unofficial changes pushed through because the proper change control process took too long. And Gwen needed results yesterday so she could send leadership a nice update. All of that stopped the day I submitted my notice. I didn't sabotage anything. Didn't delete files or hide documentation or plant any landmines. I simply started following actual policies, the ones written in the official procedures manual that nobody ever read because they expected me to handle exceptions personally. Malicious compliance. Except it wasn't even malicious. It was just compliance. Following the rules everyone agreed to follow, but nobody actually followed because there was always someone like me to clean up the mess quietly. Day 1 of my notice period, a junior engineer messaged me about an Amber Alert on the Meridian backup cluster. Sync lag. Asked if I could just bounce the service like usual. The usual being, I fix it in 5 minutes, nobody logs a ticket, nobody follows procedure, the problem disappears, and everyone pretends the systems run themselves. Old Ronnie would have remoted in, fixed it, and moved on without telling anyone there'd been an issue. New Ronnie replied with instructions to follow the standard incident escalation procedure. Document in service now. Assign to on-call rotation. Follow the runbook. Section 4.3 covers sync lag specifically. The response came back almost immediately, but that takes like 2 hours with all the approvals. You could fix it in 5 minutes. My reply: the procedure exists for a reason. Following it ensures proper documentation and knowledge transfer. I won't always be here to bounce services. Translation: not my circus anymore. Time to learn to juggle. Watching people realize they'd have to actually use the processes I'd written was darkly fascinating. They went through the usual denial to acceptance arc and finally started reading the runbooks. Turns out, those processes worked fine. They were just slow, bureaucratic, and exactly as thorough as they needed to be for a regulated industry where audit trails matter. By day 3, Gwen scheduled an all-hands operations sync, corporate for emergency meeting because everything's on fire, and I need someone to yell at. She threw scary graphs on the screen showing resolution times up 40%, customer satisfaction trending yellow, and something called operational velocity that I'm pretty sure she made up. It sounded bad, which was the point. She demanded to know what was happening. Why were things taking so long? Where was the sense of urgency? The room sat in uncomfortable silence. Junior engineers looked at each other like students hoping someone else would answer the teacher's question. Someone coughed. This was the moment where old Ronnie would have spoken up, offered to coordinate a solution. New Ronnie sat there with his hands folded, waiting. I explained in my most helpful voice that we were following documented change control procedures, per her memo from last October about process adherence and audit compliance. The one she'd sent after external auditors flagged our change management as a risk area. The one she'd made everyone sign acknowledging they'd read and understood. Her jaw tightened. That memo had been performative, a gesture she'd assumed nobody would actually enforce because I'd always handled things quietly. A checkbox exercise? CYA documentation. Not something people were supposed to actually do. She suggested there was room for professional judgment in applying procedures, that we didn't need to be rigid about routine issues, that experienced team members should know when to expedite. I agreed completely, nodded, then noted that with the Meridian migration approaching, it seemed important to ensure all changes were properly documented and approved for audit trail purposes. Wouldn't want another finding, especially not right before a major client engagement. Checkmate via her own policy. She couldn't argue without contradicting herself in front of the entire team. The meeting ended with nothing resolved and everyone confused about what they were supposed to do now. Death by process. Exactly as designed. That afternoon, I left at 5 o'clock sharp. First time in years that I hadn't stayed just to wrap up a few things. Jensen had a basketball game at 6:30, and I was going to be there for the whole thing instead of watching the fourth quarter from the parking lot while handling emails on my phone. He spotted me in the stands during warm-ups and literally stopped dribbling. The ball bounced away while he stared, grinned, got yelled at by his coach for losing focus. After the game, they won by 6, and he had 8 points including a 3-pointer in the fourth quarter. We got burgers at his favorite place. He asked why I wasn't checking my phone, why I hadn't looked at it once since we sat down. I told him about the new job. Director role. Better pay. Mostly remote. We weren't moving. Same apartment, same school, same everything. Except I'd actually be around for dinner. And games. And Sunday movies that didn't get interrupted by emergency pages. He thought about it for a second, then said the other thing wasn't working, for either of us. The incident hit at 2:40 a.m. on day 9 of my notice period. I woke up to 43 notifications and a voicemail from Andre that consisted of 2 words. It's bad. My phone still had the old alert routing from when I used to cover extra rotations. I'd never bothered to remove myself from the escalation chains until now. One more thing on the handover list that suddenly seemed less urgent. Meridian Financial's primary database cluster had crashed. Not a graceful failover to backup systems. Not a controlled maintenance window with customer notification. A hard crash with data corruption during overnight batch processing. The kind of failure that makes auditors ask uncomfortable questions and lawyers start drafting demand letters. Their SLA guaranteed 99.99% uptime for critical systems, with financial penalties that escalated by the hour. Every minute of unplanned downtime cost them roughly $15,000 in direct losses, plus whatever regulatory penalties would follow from missed processing windows. By the time the sun came up, they'd been down 4 hours, $6 million in exposure and counting, with the meter still running and no clear resolution in sight. I could hear the panic in the escalation emails even from here, watching the notifications pile up on my phone like a slow-motion disaster. I wasn't on call, wasn't even supposed to be involved. But Andre called me anyway, And I picked up because old habits die hard, and because I wanted to know what happened to systems I'd protected for 6 years. He explained the situation in his usual deadpan. The crash was caused by a storage firmware update, one that wasn't on the approved change calendar. The change request showed a junior engineer's name as implementer, but Gwen had pressured him to push it Friday night because the client CTO had mentioned query performance during a business review. Gwen wanted it fixed before Monday, so she could send a proactive communication about how responsive Sentinel Ridge was to client concerns. Told him to skip the staging environment testing because we don't have time for the full process on something this routine. Classic Gwen. Quick wins that looked good in the moment and exploded catastrophically later. Maximum visibility, minimum diligence. The firmware equivalent of "I'm sure it'll be fine," followed by "How could anyone have predicted this?" The answer, of course, was that everyone who knew anything about change management could have predicted this. That's why change management exists. I'd blocked dozens of similar requests over the years by insisting on proper testing and change windows. The conversations were always the same. Gwen would frame urgency as client centricity. I'd explain why shortcuts create bigger problems than they solve. She'd sigh dramatically about how ops people don't understand the business, and I'd hold the line anyway. Without me running interference, nobody was left willing to tell her no. Nobody wanted to be the person who slowed things down or didn't understand the urgency or wasn't a team player. So they did what she asked, and now $6 million was on fire. Andre had documentation. The email chain between Gwen and the junior engineer was damning in its clarity. She hadn't put instructions in writing directly. She was too politically savvy for that, but his replies referenced her verbal instructions with the precision of someone who knew he might need cover later. Smart kid. Per our call, you want me to push the firmware tonight and skip staging validation. Just confirming in writing before I proceed. Her response, 3 minutes later. Correct. The client is breathing down my neck and I need this resolved before Monday. Get it done. Plus the change request noted expedited per VP approval with her initials, and the change control system logged exactly who approved the staging bypass. Digital breadcrumbs leading straight to her door. I told him to save everything. Screenshot it, export it to the compliance case folder, flag it for legal hold. Don't let anyone modify those records. The formal incident review was scheduled for Thursday. Standard practice for any outage exceeding SLA thresholds. A structured postmortem where we'd walk through timeline, identify root causes, and document corrective action. Usually, Gwen would facilitate these reviews, which meant controlling the narrative and ensuring the final report said whatever she needed it to say. The problems got smaller. The accountability disappeared. The lessons learned were always about process improvements that someone else would implement. But this time, there was a new variable. The outage had triggered Meridian's breach notification requirements, which meant their compliance team was demanding an independent review with full documentation. They'd insisted on including their own technical lead in the meeting, Marisol Vega, a senior systems architect I'd worked with during both previous platform migrations. Marisol didn't play politics. She played facts, had a reputation for being relentless about root cause analysis, the kind of engineer who would follow a problem through 17 layers of corporate obfuscation until she found the actual answer. She once told me her job was to find what broke and why, and corporate feelings weren't her concern. And she had access to logs that Gwen couldn't edit. I spent the days before the review compiling documentation. Every email where Gwen had pushed for expedited changes. Every instance where proper testing had been skipped at her direction or with her approval. Every sanitized report where risk factors got edited out before reaching leadership. Clean timeline. Supporting evidence. All factual, all verifiable, zero commentary or interpretation. I wasn't planning to sabotage anyone. I was just planning to tell the truth when asked. The incident review took place in the main conference room on the executive floor, the one with the good chairs and the view of the parking garage. Present, Gwen, myself, Andre, our CTO, Marisol from Meridian, and an HR representative I'd never seen at a technical meeting in 6 years of working there. HR representatives don't attend postmortems unless someone's about to become post-employed. Her presence told me everything about what leadership expected to happen in this room. This wasn't just a post-mortem. This was a tribunal with better lighting. Gwen tried controlling the narrative from the opening minute. She'd prepared. Hair perfect, blazer crisp, confident smile firmly in place. Thanked everyone for being there during a challenging week. Acknowledged we'd fallen short of our commitments. Said she took full responsibility for ensuring we do better going forward. Yeah, taking responsibility for improvement is not the same as accepting responsibility for failure. It's the rhetorical equivalent of a magician's misdirection. Watch this hand, not that one. Then she suggested we focus on constructive root cause analysis, rather than assigning blame. Translation: let's make sure blame lands somewhere else. She asked me to walk through the technical timeline. Gracious of her to let me present the facts that would end her career. I'd prepared 8 slides, timestamps, log excerpts, email threads, facts arranged in chronological order, sourced to specific documentation. Just reality with receipts. I explained the incident began at 2:40 a.m. when the primary database cluster experienced a corruption event during scheduled batch processing. Root cause was a storage firmware update that introduced a compatibility issue with our database versioning. The firmware documentation explicitly required staging environment validation before production deployment. The update went to production at 11:34 p.m. the previous Friday. Without staging validation, I showed the change request screenshot. Submitted 9:45 p.m. Friday, approved 9:50 p.m. 5 minutes from request to approval for a firmware change on production database systems. Standard change control requires a 72-hour review window plus mandatory staging validation. Both requirements were waived. The waiver notation read, expedited per VP approval, DH. Gwen shifted in her seat but kept her expression neutral. Explained it was a judgment call based on client urgency. Meridian had flagged performance concerns that needed prompt attention. Sometimes you have to balance process with responsiveness. Can't let bureaucracy get in the way of client service. Marisol spoke for the first time. Voice calm, precise. The voice of someone who'd sat through 100 of these meetings and had exactly 0 patience for corporate spin. What performance concerns specifically? I reviewed our support ticket history this morning. There's no escalation from our team requesting emergency firmware intervention. No severity 1 ticket. No documented urgency. Gwen explained it came up in conversation during the quarterly business review. The client CTO had mentioned some query latency that was concerning her team. Informal feedback. The kind of thing that doesn't always make it into formal channels. Did she specifically request that firmware be updated without staging validation? Gwen's smile tightened. She explained she'd expressed urgency about resolution. She made a leadership decision to prioritize client satisfaction and competitive responsiveness. Sometimes you have to take initiative. I advanced to the next slide. The email thread, with key passages highlighted. I read the relevant exchange. The junior engineer's email at 9:15 p.m. Friday. Per our call, you want me to push the firmware update tonight and skip staging validation. Just confirming instructions in writing before I proceed. Gwen's response at 9:18 p.m. Correct. The client is breathing down my neck, and I need this resolved before Monday. Get it done. Silence settled over the room like a physical weight. Gwen claimed she was paraphrasing client pressure, not overriding safety procedures. The engineer had the authority to push back if he had concerns. He could have said no. Our CTO leaned forward, noted the email seemed fairly explicit, asked if there was another interpretation he was missing. Gwen said context matters. She was communicating urgency, not overriding change control. Experienced professionals should understand nuance. Andre cleared his throat. He'd been watching with his usual detachment, but something in his posture had shifted. He leaned forward slightly. The change control audit log shows Gwen's credentials approved the expedited timeline and staging bypass. Not the engineer's supervisor, not the change control board as required for production database systems. Gwen directly using VP override authority. The timestamp is 9:50 p.m. Friday, 5 minutes after the request was submitted. The HR rep's pen was moving across her legal pad with intense focus, transcribing testimony, building a record. Gwen insisted VP override authority existed for exactly these circumstances. That's why the authority existed in the first place. It was part of her role. The ability to make judgment calls when the situation required. I pulled up the policy screenshot. Noted that firmware changes to production database systems require change control board approval regardless of urgency level. Per policy OPS 147, section 4.2. VP override authority explicitly excludes changes to critical data systems handling financial transactions. The policy document showed her electronic signature at the bottom. She'd signed off on it herself during last year's annual compliance review. Marisol added that Meridian's contract includes specific language about change control procedures for systems handling financial data. Bypassing documented procedures may constitute material breach. Their legal team was reviewing implications. Gwen pivoted to me, said I'd been disengaged for 2 weeks, refused to help with routine issues, unavailable for questions from junior team members. Now presenting all this like a prosecution instead of a collaborative review. Maybe if I'd been more supportive, this situation wouldn't have happened. I explained I'd followed documented procedures during my notice period, as required by company policy for transitioning employees, Every issue handled according to the established escalation matrix. This incident occurred because documented procedures were bypassed at her explicit written instruction, an instruction I wasn't consulted about and didn't approve. She stood up. Chair scraped the floor. I don't have to sit here and be attacked by someone who's already checked out. Our CTO held up a hand, called for a break, asked Gwen and the HR rep to join him in his office. Marisol caught my eye as we filed out. The faintest nod. Professional acknowledgement between people who value facts over narratives. The rest of my notice period passed quietly. Gwen was working remotely on strategic initiatives for the remainder of the week, meaning she was negotiating her exit, being investigated by legal, or both. Her office light stayed dark. On day 11 of my notice, I was in the break room getting coffee when I heard the elevator ding. I looked up and watched Gwen walk out, followed by an HR rep and a security officer. She was carrying a cardboard box. The sad, standard issue kind they keep in supply closets for exactly this purpose. A few picture frames visible on top. Her badge hung from a lanyard around her neck, but the way the security officer walked slightly behind her told me it had already been deactivated. Just decoration now. She didn't look around, didn't make eye contact with anyone, just walked straight toward the lobby doors, the HR rep maintaining that practiced neutral expression. The security officer wasn't aggressive, just present. The whole thing took maybe 45 seconds. Quiet. Professional. 1 minute she was VP of operations, the next she was someone who used to work here, walking toward her car in the parking garage. Someone near the window whispered, "Finally," under their breath. I didn't disagree. Our CTO called me into his office on my second to last day to confirm what the grapevine had already established. Gwen was gone. Effective immediately. The official internal announcement would describe it as a mutual decision to pursue new opportunities. The reality. Legal reviewed the email chains, HR reviewed the policy violations, and Meridian made it clear they needed documented governance improvements and leadership changes in the operations organization if the relationship was going to continue. He said they were aware of how badly they'd handled my situation, the promotion, the visibility issue, the way credit got redistributed upward while risk got pushed downward, all of it. If I'd consider staying, we could discuss the director role, different reporting structure, compensation that actually reflected my value, real authority this time, not just responsibility. He meant it. I could tell from the desperation in his voice. Everything I'd wanted 2 months ago. Now it felt like being offered a window seat on a plane that had already crashed into the mountain. I told him I appreciated that, genuinely, but I'd made commitments. He nodded, said he figured, that I'd been right about everything. He should have seen it sooner. I told him he saw what Gwen wanted him to see. That was her specialty. On my last day, I finished the handover documentation. Almost 90 pages of procedures, contacts, troubleshooting guides, and institutional knowledge that would take my replacement months to fully absorb, assuming they bothered to read it and didn't just ping me on LinkedIn asking quick question. I sent it to Andre with a note. Don't let them pressure you into shortcuts. The procedures exist for a reason. His reply came back within minutes, staying exactly long enough to collect full pension. Then fly fishing shop in Montana. You should visit. Bring the kid. I stopped by the junior engineer's desk on my way out, the one Gwen had pressured into pushing the firmware update. He looked shell-shocked. Fair, given he'd spent the past week being interviewed by legal about emails he'd never wanted to write and decisions he'd been pressured into making. He apologized, said he should have pushed back harder, that he knew it felt wrong when he did it. I told him he was a junior engineer doing what his VP explicitly instructed in writing, not on him. Blame flows upward, not downward, at least in any organization that deserves to exist. But next time someone with authority asks him to skip a safety procedure, get it in writing, then think carefully about pressing enter. His career will last longer than their urgency. Badge returned. Equipment signed off. NDA reminder acknowledged. Standard exit procedures complete. I walked out of Sentinel Ridge on a Friday afternoon. No fanfare, no goodbye party, no tearful farewells. Just me in a cardboard box, stepping into a humid Charlotte afternoon that smelled like summer rain. Jensen was on the couch when I got home. Basketball highlights on TV. Last day? Yup, last day. How do you feel? I thought about it honestly. The years of early mornings and late nights, and missed dinners and weekend emergencies. Gwen's cold smile, and her comment about my family eating because of her. All the credit stolen and blame deflected, and risk absorbed by people who deserved better. Watching her walk out with that sad little box? Good. Really good. We still doing Chinese and Terminator 2 on Sunday? Wouldn't miss it. Monday, I started at Redstone. New badge, new laptop, new Slack workspace full of new people. First meeting with their CTO covered incident response philosophy and team expectations. He explained their approach was simple. Document everything. Test everything. Never let anyone pressure you into shortcuts because they're in a hurry. The right way is the only way, even when the right way takes longer. Especially when the right way takes longer. I smiled. Said I could work with that. My phone stayed quiet all morning. No pages, no panicked texts, no urgent escalations from people needing me to save them from decisions they shouldn't have made. Just the normal rhythm of a job that respected boundaries and understood that uptime wasn't about heroes. It was about systems that worked, because people followed the process, because they invested in redundancy and testing and change control, because they treated stability as a feature, not an afterthought. 2 weeks later, Andre texted me a screenshot, company-wide email announcing organizational updates in the operations division. Gwen's name appeared exactly once, buried in the third paragraph. We thank Gwen Holloway for her contributions and wish her well in future endeavors. The rest was corporate boilerplate about continued commitment to operational excellence and strengthening our leadership team and exciting opportunities ahead. Andre's commentary, 3 sentences, after 4 years. The official record of her entire tenure. Almost poetic, really. I laughed, closed the message, and went back to work. Some people never learn, but that wasn't my problem anymore. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. Today's story is about a guy who kept account. Not because he was petty, because he needed to know if what he was feeling was real. 9 rejections, 17 days, 8 weeks without his wife wanting to be close to him. And every single time he brought it up, somehow he ended up being the problem. But here's the part that actually ended the marriage. His wife didn't get upset when he finally stopped trying. She smiled, said things felt better this way, that this was how it should be. He didn't argue, he didn't beg, he just started packing. This is that story. After weeks of hearing, "Not tonight," I quit reaching out. She smiled. "See, this is how it should be." So I packed my bags. What happened after still haunts her. Me and Dana had been married 4 years when things started shifting. Not in any dramatic, obvious way. No screaming matches, no bombshell moments. It was quiet, gradual. The kind of slow drift you don't recognize until you're already deep inside it, and the shore is further away than you realized. I'm an operations coordinator at an architectural firm. Dana works as an account manager at a consulting company downtown. On paper, our setup was solid. A row house in Federal Hill, decent incomes, a routine that mostly worked. Dinner together most nights, TV on the couch, weekends running errands or checking out whatever was happening around the city. Normal married couple stuff. At least that's what I kept telling myself. It started on a Wednesday night in late September. I don't remember the exact date, but I remember the feeling like it was last week. We'd both gotten home from work around 6, made dinner together, talked about our days, watched a show. Nothing unusual. Around 10:45, we headed upstairs. I wasn't planning anything dramatic. I just reached over while she was setting her alarm, touched her shoulder, kissed the back of her neck. Simple affection. The kind of thing that used to just happen naturally between us. She pulled back immediately. "Not tonight, Owen. I'm just not feeling it." I backed off right away. Of course. She settled into her pillow and was out in 15 minutes. I lay there on my side, staring at the ceiling, doing math I really didn't want to be doing. That was the 4th time she'd said no in recent days. Monday, too tired. Tuesday, headache. Thursday, the week before, stressed from work. And now this. When had we last actually been close? I counted back. 6 weeks. I told myself it was just a phase. Everybody hits stretches like this. Work gets heavy, life piles up, you coast for a bit, and then you come out the other side of it. I wasn't going to be the guy who turns it into a whole thing. So I tried again the next night. We'd just finished watching a comedy, both of us laughing, relaxed. Felt like a natural moment. I leaned over, kissed her. She kissed me back for maybe 3 seconds, then pulled away. I have an early client call tomorrow. I need real sleep tonight. Dana had client calls every single week, multiple times a week. It had never been an issue before. I said, okay, rolled over, added it to the quiet tally I was running in the back of my head without really meaning to. 5 rejections in 8 days. Saturday came around. No work the next day, no meetings to hide behind. I put in real effort that evening, cooked a proper dinner, lit some candles, put on a playlist we both liked. We had a genuinely good night, talked for a long time, laughed, enjoyed each other's company the way we used to. By the time we headed to bed, I actually felt optimistic about where things were going. I made my move. Gentle, affectionate, nothing aggressive about it. I ate too much. I feel bloated and uncomfortable. She'd eaten a completely normal portion, same as every night. Had seemed perfectly comfortable and relaxed through the entire dinner, laughing and talking the whole time. I told myself maybe she really was uncomfortable. Maybe I was being too sensitive. Maybe I was reading things into a situation that didn't mean what I was starting to think it meant. Except I wasn't. Tuesday, October 3rd. Quiet evening. Nothing remotely stressful about it. Got ready for bed around 10. I tried just cuddling up next to her, not making it a big thing, just seeing where it might naturally go. Not tonight. I'm getting a headache. She didn't take anything for it. Didn't bring it up again. 20 minutes later, she was breathing peacefully, completely out. No tossing around, no sign of any pain or discomfort whatsoever. 7 rejections in less than 2 weeks. Almost 7 weeks without any real intimacy. And I was starting to see the shape of something I genuinely did not want to be looking at. Friday, October 6th. I decided to just be direct about it. Not confrontational, not emotional. Just honest. It had been over 6 weeks. That's not a normal stretch for a married couple unless both people are actually fine with it. We clearly weren't. Dana, it's been a while. I miss being close to you. Can we just talk about this? I'm stressed with the campaign launch. The campaign had finished 3 weeks earlier. She'd told me it went great, that the client was thrilled with the results. I sat with that for a moment. A successfully completed project from nearly a month ago was still generating enough residual stress to keep her husband at arm's length. That was the excuse. But here's what got me more than the excuse itself. She didn't just brush it off and redirect the conversation. She made me feel guilty for bringing it up in the first place. Like I was making it into something. Like wanting to be close to my own wife after 6+ weeks was some kind of unreasonable ask. Sunday afternoon, October 8th. I tried a totally different approach. Spontaneous, playful during the day. We used to love lazy Sunday afternoons together. Early in the marriage, it was practically a standing tradition between us. Owen, seriously, it's the middle of the day. That's weird. Weird. She called something we used to genuinely enjoy together weird. Like I'd suggested something strange instead of something that used to make us both happy. I filed that away and didn't push it. Wednesday, October 11th. 8 weeks. I needed to know if there was something actually wrong that I was missing entirely. Dana, is there something going on? It's been almost 2 months. If there's a real problem here, I want to fix it. You're putting too much pressure on this. That's why I don't want to. My fault. I was creating pressure by wanting to be close to my wife after 8 weeks. I was the problem, not the 8 weeks of being turned away. Me. Thursday, October 12th. I tried being as low-key as possible. Didn't reference the timeline. Didn't frame it as anything. Just a casual, easy approach, like it was nothing at all. I'm exhausted. Can we please just sleep? She'd been up until 1 in the morning the previous night watching some show, but tonight she was exhausted. Saturday morning, October 14th. Both of us well-rested. A fresh start to the weekend. I haven't even had coffee yet. Way too early. So, 9:30 in the morning was too early. The middle of the day was weird. Nighttime, she was always too tired. There was apparently no acceptable window anymore. Not one she was willing to offer. That same night, we went out for dinner at a spot in Fells Point we both liked. Real date night energy. Both dressed up, trying to just be easy with each other. We had a good time. Talked, laughed, held hands across the table. For a little while, I actually thought something had shifted. We got home around 10. I tried one more time. Not tonight. Let's not force it. I said, okay, rolled to my side of the bed, and quietly, without any argument or scene, made a decision. I was done initiating. Done making the first move. If Dana wanted intimacy in this marriage, she was going to have to reach for it herself. Because I was finished putting myself out there to be turned down. 9 rejections over 17 days. Almost 8 weeks without any physical connection beyond the occasional hello or goodbye hug. And every single time I tried to address it, somehow I became the problem. Too demanding. creating pressure, making it weird. So I stopped. Completely. Pause for a second. And for the listeners, this is me jumping in, not the OP. I want you to notice what just happened. Owen didn't blow up, didn't fire off a long, angry text at 2 in the morning, didn't threaten to leave and then not follow through. He just quietly decided to stop trying. And that silence is the loudest thing a man can do in this situation. Most guys would have lost it by week 3. Owen made it to week 8 without folding. That kind of patience is rare. The problem is, Dana never noticed the patience at all, and she's about to show exactly how comfortable she is with him disappearing. Sunday, October 15th. I was pleasant, helpful around the house, normal as ever. We ran errands together, grabbed lunch, came home and watched a movie on the couch. Normal couple stuff in every way, except I kept my physical distance. No affectionate touches during the movie, no cuddling, no attempts at anything beyond just being in the same room. Dana didn't notice. She seemed completely comfortable with the new arrangement, like nothing had changed at all. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, same thing. We coexisted fine, talked about work, made plans for the upcoming weekend, figured out dinners. But I kept that wall up. Not cold, not visibly distant, just neutral. The way 2 roommates who got along well would share a space. She still didn't notice. Thursday night, we were watching TV on the couch. Dana put her feet in my lap, the way she always did when she was relaxed and comfortable. Normally, I would have rubbed her feet, let things gradually shift from there, tried to build some kind of connection out of the moment. This time, I just let them sit there in my lap. Didn't massage them. Didn't do anything. Just let them rest. She didn't react at all. Didn't look over. Didn't seem to register the difference. Just kept watching TV, completely at ease. That's when the picture really sharpened for me. She wanted me physically present in the room, but with zero expectation of connection attached to it. No effort from my side, no attempt at closeness, no ask for anything more than sharing the same couch at the end of the day. She didn't want a husband. She wanted a roommate who covered half the bills and didn't create complications. Sunday, October 22nd. We spent the whole day together. Brunch at a place she'd been wanting to try, a long walk along the inner harbor enjoying the fall weather, made dinner at home, watched a movie, a full day as a married couple. We held hands briefly while we were walking outside. That was it. That was the total physical affection for an entire day spent together. And Dana seemed genuinely happy with that. Relaxed, pleasant, content. I felt like I was living with someone who wore my wife's face, but had none of the things that had made her my wife in the first place. By Thursday, October 26th, I'd been running this quiet experiment for 2 full weeks. 2 weeks of zero initiation on my end. Zero response from hers. 2 weeks of her not noticing or not caring that her husband had completely withdrawn emotionally. I kept waiting for some moment where she'd reach for me, or ask if something was wrong, or show any sign at all that the absence registered. I kept thinking, surely at some point she has to notice that I've gone cold. Surely something trips a wire. Nothing. Not a word, not a glance, not a single moment where she paused and looked at me like something was off. She was completely at ease. That told me everything I needed to know before she even opened her mouth. We were in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner. Dana was in a noticeably good mood, humming to herself while loading the dishwasher. She started talking about a festival coming up in Federal Hill the following weekend, said we should go check it out. Light, easy, relaxed, happy. Then she said the thing that ended the marriage. You know, I feel like we've been getting along really well lately. I set down the plate I was holding. Yeah? What's different? I don't know. You just seem more relaxed, less tense. She was right. I was more relaxed, because I'd stopped caring, stopped hoping, stopped setting myself up for the same wall every single night, and then lying awake afterward wondering what I was doing wrong. It's nice. This is how it should be. I stood there and absorbed that. This is how it should be. A marriage where I don't reach for her, where I don't pursue her, don't push for connection, where I keep a pleasant, comfortable distance and never ask for anything that makes her uncomfortable. What do you mean? She actually smiled at me. A warm, genuine smile. When we're not all focused on that other stuff, we're actually good together. See? This is how it should be. That other stuff. She meant intimacy. She'd taken what's supposed to be a core part of marriage and reduced it down to that other stuff. The way you'd refer to something annoying and optional that you're glad to finally be rid of. And she was celebrating. Standing in our kitchen, humming, smiling, genuinely happy that I had apparently given up. I kept my face completely neutral. Yeah, I guess you're right. But inside, everything just locked into place. She didn't want a husband. She wanted a pleasant roommate who didn't make demands. And she believed I'd accepted that arrangement. Thought I was settled into it right alongside her. She had no idea what she'd just handed me. That night, after she fell asleep, I lay in the dark and started making plans. Hold on, this is still me, not Owen. That line right there, that other stuff. She didn't say she was going through something difficult. Didn't say she needed more time. She smiled and told him that a marriage without intimacy is how it should be. That's not a rough patch. That's a verdict. And Owen heard it exactly right. No overanalyzing, no convincing himself she must have meant something different. She handed him the truth on a plate, and he believed her. She celebrated one move too early. The exit strategy was already forming before she finished that sentence. The next day was Friday. I spent my lunch break calling around to a few divorce attorneys, found one who had an opening Monday afternoon. After work, I drove through Canton looking at available apartments. Found a furnished one-bedroom with a month-to-month lease, ready for immediate move-in. Scheduled a walkthrough for Saturday morning. Saturday, October 28th. I walked through the place. Small, nothing remarkable. But it was mine. A space where I wouldn't spend every night feeling like wanting normal human connection was some kind of character defect. I signed the lease that afternoon and told the landlord I'd move in Monday. Then I called my buddy Kyle and told him everything. He was floored. Couldn't believe it had gotten this far. But once I walked him through the full timeline, the rejections, the rotating excuses, and especially what Dana had said Thursday night in the kitchen, he got it fast. She actually said that? That she's happier when you stop trying? That's cold, man. What are you going to do? I'm leaving Sunday. Sunday? Don't you think you should talk to her first? I'm going to talk to her right before I leave. That evening, while Dana was out with friends, I packed 2 suitcases. Enough clothes for a couple weeks. Loaded them quietly into the trunk of my car. Came back inside and waited. Sunday morning, October 29th. The day everything ended. Dana slept in, came downstairs around 10 in her pajamas, completely relaxed, made herself coffee, and started scrolling her phone at the kitchen table. I watched her for a minute from the doorway, totally absorbed in whatever was on that screen, perfectly content in her own little world, not a hint of anything weighing on her. She looked up when I sat down across from her. Morning. Sleep well, Dana. We need to talk. She set her phone down, gave me her full attention. Okay, what's up? I'm moving out today. The confusion that crossed her face would have almost been funny if the situation wasn't what it was. She actually let out a short laugh, like she'd misheard something and was waiting for me to correct myself. What? What are you talking about? I've already found an apartment in Canton. I packed last night. I'm moving out today. Is this some kind of joke? Owen, what's going on? I told her what she'd said Thursday night in the kitchen, repeated it back exactly. She tried to walk it back immediately, said she only meant we'd been fighting less lately, that I was taking it the wrong way. I told her we hadn't been fighting because I'd given up, because I'd spent 2 full weeks not touching her, not trying, not asking for anything, and she'd responded by smiling and telling me this was the marriage she wanted. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. 2 weeks, Dana. I didn't reach for you once, and you were the happiest you'd been in months. You literally smiled and said that's how it should be. I just liked that there was no pressure. There hasn't been pressure. I was patient for 8 weeks. 9 rejections in 17 days. I counted every single one. Her face changed when I said that. You were counting? I was paying attention. There's a difference. So what? You're leaving because we haven't been intimate enough? I'm leaving because you don't want me. And you're genuinely happy about it. She kept trying to reframe what she'd said. kept searching for the version of it that would sound different than it obviously was. When I finally asked her directly, "Okay, so how did you mean it then?" she had nothing. Just sat there looking at me, trying to find an angle that didn't exist. That silence was all the answer I needed. "You're being dramatic. Every marriage goes through phases." "This isn't a phase. This is who you are. You want a roommate, not a husband." She started crying then. Real tears, not performative. Part of me registered that. But I'd spent too many nights after being turned away wondering what was wrong with me. I'd already done my grieving for this marriage. Her tears now didn't move anything. "We can fix this." "Fix what? You don't think anything is broken. You were happy. You said so yourself." "I'm not happy with you leaving. But you were happy with me giving up. Those aren't the same thing." She asked if we could just sit down and really talk it through. I told her we were talking right now, and she still hadn't said she actually wanted me. That she was upset I was leaving, not upset that she'd spent 2 months shutting me out. The silence that followed confirmed everything. She couldn't say it. Couldn't even come close to saying it. She didn't want what she'd been rejecting for months. She just didn't want the inconvenience of dealing with the fallout of me being gone. I got up from the table. "I'll be back this week for the rest of my things." "Owen, wait. I've waited long enough. 8 weeks, 9 rejections, 2 weeks of you not noticing I'd completely checked out. I'm done, Dana." I walked out, got in my car with the suitcases in the trunk, and drove to Canton. 3 miles from the woman I'd married. But it felt like a completely different universe already. "Okay, stop. This part matters and I don't want it to slide by. He didn't leave in a rage. Didn't do the thing where you threaten to go and then stick around waiting to be talked out of it. He had one calm, honest conversation, gave her the exact reason, and then walked out. No ultimatums, no dramatic exit speech. Just, you told me this is how it should be, so I made it permanent. That's the move." For the listeners, still me, not the OP, the exit is done. Now watch what happens when she realizes he actually meant every single word of it. Monday afternoon, I sat down with the divorce attorney. He went through the standard questions. Was I sure? Any realistic chance of things changing? I told him I was completely sure, and there was no chance at all. He walked me through the process. Straightforward case, no kids, not much to divide. Said it could be wrapped up in a few months if she didn't complicate things. "Let's file today." He seemed a little caught off guard by how clear I was about it, but he drew up the paperwork and I signed everything. Said he'd reach out to Dana's attorney once she retained one. My phone had been going all morning. 7 missed calls from Dana, a stack of texts I hadn't opened. I finally sent one response. "Papers are filed. Attorney will contact you." Tuesday, she showed up at my office. The front desk called my extension, said my wife was downstairs asking to see me. I went down more out of genuine curiosity than anything else. She looked rough, eyes red and swollen, clearly hadn't slept at all. I felt something small and distant pull for a second. Then I thought about 9 rejections in 17 days. Remembered her smiling in the kitchen telling me this is how it should be. "We need to talk about this properly." We did talk. You told me what you wanted. I'm giving you exactly that. A life where nobody pressures you for that other stuff. I never said I wanted a divorce. You said you wanted a marriage without intimacy. Same thing. She kept insisting that wasn't what she meant. Security had started watching us. Other people in the lobby were noticing. I wasn't doing this in front of my colleagues. "I need to get back to work. Please don't come here again, Dana. Talk to a lawyer, sign the papers, and let's just make this as clean as possible." I walked back to the elevators and left her standing there. Felt something for maybe 30 seconds. Then I thought about putting myself out there over and over for 8 straight weeks and getting the door shut in my face every single time without a second thought. Wednesday, she sent a 2,000-word email. How stressed she'd been, how she didn't realize how bad things had gotten, how she'd work harder and be more present and show up differently if I'd just give her another shot. Promises stacked on top of more promises. I read it once. She never actually apologized for the rejections. Never acknowledged what she'd said in the kitchen that Thursday night. Never admitted to being relieved when I stopped trying. Just a long list of explanations wrapped in promises to try harder at something she clearly didn't actually want. I didn't respond. Thursday, I went back to the house to pick up more of my things. Dana was there waiting. She'd clearly spent time preparing for this, had things she wanted to say. "Did you read my email?" "I did. I'm still leaving." "You're not even willing to try? Not even going to work on this at all?" "I tried for 8 weeks, Dana. You didn't notice. You didn't care. And when I stopped, you celebrated. There's nothing here to work on." She broke down then, heaving, real sobs that filled the whole house. I kept packing, methodical, steady. I'd already run out of emotional reactions to her tears. There was nothing left in that well. "You've changed. This isn't who you are." I accepted reality. "You should try it sometime." 3 boxes in the car. I left without a hug, without a promise to stay in touch, without anything. Just left. Friday, her attorney contacted mine. She wanted to contest the divorce, wanted some kind of reconciliation process put in place before things moved forward. My answer through the attorney: no. She texted me that afternoon. "You've changed. You're being cruel." I responded one last time. "I've accepted reality. You should too." Then I muted her number. Didn't block it, just muted it. Let her send whatever she needed to send. I just wouldn't see it unless I chose to go looking. Let me jump in for a second, because this detail matters. He didn't block her. He muted her. And that difference is everything. Blocking is reactive. It means she still has enough pull to make him want to cut the line. Muting is something else entirely. It's, "I don't need to manage this anymore." She can talk into the void as long as she needs to. He's not angry. He's just done. And here's what nobody talks about. Going fully quiet on someone is more disorienting than any argument ever could be. Dana wanted a reaction, proof he still cared enough to be angry. He gave her nothing. Now watch what he builds. The first couple weeks in the new place were strange in a way I hadn't expected. I'd wake up in the morning and forget for a split second where I was. Then I'd remember. And instead of dread, there was just quiet relief. No lying there bracing for another rejection. No starting the day already calculating whether tonight might be different. No walking on eggshells or editing myself before I even got out of bed. Just my own space, my own pace, my own life. The first night I slept through completely without waking up at 2 in the morning. I almost didn't know what to do with that. It had been so long since rest actually felt like rest. My whole body had been on low-level alert for months, without me fully realizing it. Sleeping in a place where there was nothing to dread apparently makes a serious difference. I threw myself into work. Got a promotion about a month in. Something I'd been pushing toward for a while, but hadn't had the mental bandwidth to actually close while I was stuck in survival mode at home. Started going to the gym regularly again, which I'd completely let slide during the last stretch of the marriage. Reconnected with guys I'd fallen out of touch with. Started enjoying my actual life again instead of running a constant internal audit on everything I was apparently doing wrong. Kyle kept me loosely posted on what Dana was up to, even though I never asked. She'd started seeing someone not long after I moved out. Met him through her professional circle. She was posting a lot on social media. New beginnings, fresh starts, turning pages, all that. I scrolled past it once by accident and felt genuinely nothing about it. No jealousy, no satisfaction, not even much curiosity. I had genuinely, cleanly moved on. It surprised me, honestly. I'd expected it to sting at least a little. It didn't. That indifference was its own kind of confirmation that I'd made the right call. 3 months later, in February, the divorce was finalized. Quick and clean, exactly like the attorney had said. We split what little there was to divide. She kept the house. I kept my car and my peace of mind. Kyle texted me the day it was official. "You okay, man?" Better than I've been in a year. And I meant every word of it. The relief was something I couldn't have fully described to anyone who hadn't been sitting in that exact situation. In April, I met Layla at an industry event through work connections. She was in project design, sharp, genuinely funny, and one of those rare people who's actually present in a conversation instead of just waiting for a gap to fill. We got into a real back and forth about a challenge that kept coming up in both our fields and ended up talking for almost 2 hours without either of us noticing the time. She asked for my number before we left. I gave it to her. We went out the following weekend. The difference was obvious from the first hour. Layla was engaged, asked real questions, actually listened to the answers, followed up on things I'd mentioned 15 minutes earlier. When we said goodnight, she leaned into it and made it completely clear she was into it. No pulling back, no excuse about an early morning, no making me feel like I'd overstepped by wanting a decent goodnight kiss. Second date, she invited me back to her place. No games, no ambiguity, just two people who were actually into each other acting like it. Lying there afterward, I realized what I'd actually been missing. Not just the obvious part, but the feeling of being genuinely wanted, of someone choosing you on purpose, clearly, without hesitation, without making it feel like a negotiation or a favor. I'd been missing that for long enough that I'd quietly started to wonder if the problem was me. It wasn't me. We kept seeing each other. Nothing too serious at first, just genuinely enjoying the time together. But it grew into something real faster than either of us probably expected. Layla was affectionate, showed up, made time even when her schedule was packed, chose me in the small everyday ways and in the bigger ones when it mattered. July. Kyle and I met up at a coffee spot in Fells Point to catch up properly. We were about halfway into it when he got a look on his face. "Dude, you're not going to believe this." "What?" "Dana reached out to me last week, asked how you were doing." I wasn't particularly concerned. "And?" "I told her you were seeing someone. She completely fell apart." "What do you mean, fell apart?" "Started asking if it was serious. I said it seemed like it. She started crying right there. She said..." He looked at his phone. "She said he never fought for us. He just gave up." I laughed at that. Genuinely. "I fought for 8 weeks. She didn't notice." "That's exactly what I told her," Kyle said. "She'd apparently said she would have come around eventually." "Eventually after what? A year? 2? "That's what I asked. She didn't have an answer." He took a sip of his coffee. "She also said the thing that bothers her most is how happy you seem now." "I am happy. Genuinely." "She's been posting too. Passive-aggressive stuff about exes who move on too fast. In her mind, you were supposed to wait around, keep proving how much you wanted her by accepting whatever she gave you. And here's the other thing. She's been dating since that first guy, but nothing's sticking. She tells people they're not present enough, too distant. They keep their emotional distance and won't commit." I sat back and let that sink in. She was experiencing exactly what she'd put me through. "She posts about quality time and presence and all the things she never gave you," Kyle said. "The universe has a sense of humor." Late July. Layla and I were walking along the inner harbor on a Saturday afternoon, holding hands, laughing about something completely stupid, totally in our own world. That's when I spotted her. Dana, maybe 20 feet away, standing completely still, staring at us. Layla noticed my expression change. "You okay?" "Yeah, just someone I used to know." Dana walked over before I could redirect us. I could have avoided the whole thing easily enough, but I had nothing to hide and nothing to be ashamed of. I hadn't done anything wrong. I kept my voice completely easy. "Dana." She managed a hello, looked between Layla and me, clearly not prepared for this version of things at all. I kept it simple. "Layla, this is Dana, my ex-wife. Dana, this is Layla." I watched the color go out of Dana's face. She hadn't expected this. Hadn't expected to see me looking this settled, this at ease with someone standing right next to me who obviously wanted to be there. Layla, who had absolutely no idea who Dana was, gave a genuine, warm hello. We stood there for a moment that got uncomfortable fast. I could see Dana taking it all in. The way Layla and I stood close. The easy comfort between us. The thing that she and I had never actually managed together. Not in the last year of our marriage, anyway. "Well, we should get going. Take care of yourself, Dana." I guided Layla away. Felt Dana's eyes on our backs as we walked. Layla waited until we were well clear. "That was your ex-wife?" "Yeah." She seemed upset. "Not my problem anymore." "Fair enough." A short pause. "You okay?" I stopped, turned to face her, took both her hands. "I'm better than okay. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." She kissed me right there on the walkway. Chose me again in that simple, easy moment, without a second of hesitation. Final update. About a week later, Kyle texted and said Dana had sent me something recently. Suggested I might want to go check it. I'd been ignoring that muted thread for months. Probably 60 or 70 unread messages sitting in there by that point. I opened it up and scrolled to the most recent one. I understand now. I'm sorry. I sat with that for a long time. Thought about responding with everything I'd been sitting on for months, laying out exactly what that whole stretch had cost me. How many nights I'd spent staring at the ceiling, wondering what was wrong with me. How far the constant rejection had worn into something I couldn't easily name. Instead, I typed one sentence. I hope you find what you're looking for. Her response came back almost immediately. I had it. I just didn't realize until it was gone. I read it twice, felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no vindication, just nothing at all. She'd figured it out on the wrong side of too late. That was her thing to carry now, not mine. I didn't respond, blocked the number and deleted the entire thread. Closed that chapter for good. Dana wanted a marriage where I stopped reaching for her, where I didn't pursue her, didn't ask for closeness, where I maintained a comfortable, friendly distance and never made anything feel like pressure. I gave her exactly that, my complete and total absence. She celebrated when I stopped trying, smiled in our kitchen, and told me this is how it should be. So I made it permanent, gave her all the space she wanted. Turns out she'd never actually done the math on what that looked like long term. She had a man who wanted nothing more than to connect with her, who wanted to build something real, who kept trying for 8 solid weeks before quietly accepting what she was showing him. She made him feel like having completely normal human needs was a burden, chose comfortable avoidance over honesty, and now she gets to scroll through other people's lives and sit with that choice. The painful part, the part she probably can't fully admit to herself, is that nothing was actually wrong with the marriage. Nothing external broke it. No affair, no disaster, no falling out of love in some obvious way. She just stopped wanting to be close to her own husband, made him feel wrong for wanting that back, and then was genuinely surprised when he eventually believed her. She had her chances, 9 of them technically, across 17 days. Every single time she said no, then smiled when I finally stopped asking. So I gave her what she wanted, a life without me in it. What do you guys think? At what point would you have walked? And have you ever been on either side of something like this without fully realizing what was happening? Drop it in the comments. Dana got exactly what she asked for. A calm husband who stopped reaching, stopped trying, stopped making anything feel like pressure. She just never thought through the fine print. That version of the marriage eventually walks out the front door. The second she smiled and called intimacy that other stuff, the marriage was over. She just didn't know it yet. Owen didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't negotiate with someone who'd already made up her mind. He paid attention, made a plan, and gave her the silence she'd been asking for. Permanently. Drop a like and subscribe if this one hit close, and leave your take below. At what point was he right to walk?